When I was rushed to the ER after my awards ceremony, my family ignored every call. My sister posted, "Finally, a night without his drama." 2 days later, still too weak to stand, I saw 49 missed calls and mom's message. "Your sister is in trouble. Answer immediately." My sister posted, "Finally, a night without his drama," at 11:04 p.m. My hospital admission was at 9:41 p.m. She did the math, so did I. My name is Nate. I am 37 years old. I am a licensed professional engineer in Durham, North Carolina, and I have spent the last 14 years building things that hold weight. Bridges, mostly. The kind of infrastructure that holds cars and buses and 18-wheelers and never once asks to be noticed. That is the job. Precision without acknowledgement. You build it right, nobody calls. You build it wrong, everyone does. I live alone in a house I bought 4 years ago, 2 bedrooms, good bones, on the kind of quiet street where neighbors wave but do not knock. I run 4 miles every Tuesday and Thursday morning. I clear my professional email every Sunday night without fail. The same way I take out the trash, the same way I review the week's project notes before the lights go out. It is not discipline so much as preference. I like the inbox empty. I like things filed where I can find them. The award was for a pedestrian bridge over Eno River. 4 years of site surveys, load calculations, environmental review, contractor coordination, and 2 rounds of revision after the city changed the clearance requirements mid-design. The kind of project that eats the middle years of a career and does not apologize for it. The North Carolina Society of Engineers gave out the award at a dinner on a Thursday night in March. Black tie, steak on real plates. A certificate in a frame that I plan to put somewhere eventually. I drove myself there. I drove myself home. I made it as far as the intersection of Club Boulevard and Duke Street before my chest decided it had something to say. The cardiac monitor was still beeping when I checked my phone the next morning. A cardiac arrhythmia, the cardiologist explained. Not a heart attack. The distinction felt important to her. It felt academic to me. I was in a hospital bed with an IV line in my left arm and an oxygen cannula that kept sliding off my nose, and the first thing I did when the nurse stepped out was reach for my phone. 14 missed calls. My colleague Bernard twice. My office manager Sandra 4 times. My project assistant Tola once. My friend Kwame 6 times. 1 from the Engineering Society coordinator. Probably about the award photo. 0 from my family. I should say here that I was not surprised. That would be the honest thing to say. And I have spent enough years being precise about things that I have learned to be precise about this too. I was not surprised. I was confirmed. I set the phone face down on the tray table and looked at the ceiling for a while. The ceiling was beige and had a small water stain in one corner shaped like a thumb. I remember that because I am the kind of person who remembers things like that. Exact details, specific shapes, the time on the clock when something happens. I have always been this way. My family calls it intensity. I call it attention. The food tray arrived at 7 a.m. It had scrambled eggs that had clearly been reconstituted from something, and a small printed card clipped to the side. The card said, "Patient Nate Okafor, next of kin, none listed." I read it. I set it back. I ate the eggs. Let me back up, because the hospital is the middle of this story, not the beginning. The beginning is a family pattern that took me about 8 years to name, and 2 more to accept. My mother, Adiazi, is 64. She raised 2 children in Raleigh on a teacher's salary and a particular philosophy about family that sounds generous in summary and operates like a ledger in practice. The philosophy is, family takes care of family. The practice is, Nate takes care of Demi and Demi takes care of Demi. My sister Demi is 33. She is the younger one and has been the easier one for as long as either of us can remember, which is to say easier for my mother, which is to say less challenging, which is to say less likely to ask why the rules seem to apply differently depending on who is being watched. Demi is warm in public and efficient in private, and the efficiency is the thing most people never see. I saw it at 29 the first time. She needed a car. She had a job, but her credit was thin and the loan officer wanted a cosigner. My mother asked me on a Wednesday evening with the careful framing she uses when she has already decided the answer. She said Demi was trying to be responsible, that she had found a reasonable car, that it would mean a lot to the family if I could help. She used the word family the way some people use a weather report, as if the outcome were already determined by forces larger than the room. I signed. The car payment was late 9 of the next 12 months. I covered the difference 7 of those times without being asked, because co-signing means your credit is the one that absorbs the damage, and I had just started at the engineering firm and I was not in a position to absorb damage. I added up the total once at the end of that year, looking at my bank statements on a Sunday night, 2,340. I noted the number. I did not mention it to anyone. 2 years later, my mother had a medical situation, not serious, but serious enough for surgery, and a recovery that took the better part of 6 weeks. The bill came to $3,400 after insurance. It was my mother, so I paid it without discussion. I called Demi afterward carefully, not with accusation, just to see whether she was able to contribute anything toward the balance. She said she was stretched. She was sorry. She said it the way people say they are sorry about weather. She was on a cruise that month. Her words, not my inference. She posted photos on day 3 of the cruise. The kind with a frozen drink and an ocean behind her and a caption about finally getting a break. I saved one of those photos to a folder on my phone and then deleted the folder because I was not sure what I was saving it for. I know now. I was filing it. I did not have a word for what I was doing at the time. I just kept the habit. The third incident was smaller than the first two and landed harder because of it. My mother's birthday, 2 years ago. 62nd birthday, a dinner at her house that I cooked myself because Demi had offered and then texted at 4:00 in the afternoon that she was running behind and could I handle it. I handled it. I cooked jollof and fried plantains and a chicken stew that my grandmother used to make, the recipe in my mother's handwriting on a card in the kitchen drawer, the kind of card that is soft at the folds from being opened too many times. Demi arrived an hour after dinner was already on the table, with a gift bag she had clearly stopped for on the way, tissue paper uneven, the tag still attached. My mother lit up when she walked in. She said, "There she is." She had not said that when I arrived. I noted the asymmetry. I kept eating. The dinner 6 months before the hospital was a Sunday in October. My mother made jollof, and we all sat around the table the way we do a few times a year, performing a version of the family we each privately understand is a performance. Demi was talking about a business idea, something about renovation and home staging, and she was describing it the way she describes most things, with great confidence about other people's resources. She mentioned contractors, she mentioned permit timelines, she mentioned that licensing was something she would figure out. And then she mentioned my name in the middle of a sentence and did not pause, the way you mention a tool that lives in the shed. She said Nate can help with the technical side. Not a question. A fact about the future that had already been decided in her version of events. I asked what she meant. She laughed. Not at me exactly. In the direction of my mother. "You know how he is," she said, to my mother, not to me. "Everything's a project. He'll make it complicated, but he'll get it done." My mother smiled the smile she has smiled at Demi my entire life, which is warm and slightly proud and does not require much examination of what is actually being said. I picked up my fork. I took a bite. I made a note. What I noted was this. In Demi's version of the business plan, my participation was a variable she had already solved for. She was not going to ask. She was going to tell me when the time was right, and the time would be right when saying no was no longer convenient. I had seen this architecture before, in the car loan and the medical bill and the birthday dinner. The architecture was always the same. She identified a need, she identified me as the solution, and she proceeded on the assumption that the solution would cooperate. The food tray card said none listed on the second morning, too. I had not updated my emergency contact file in 2 years. Sandra had been on it since 2022 when I changed it during a bout of insomnia and good judgment. I had thought at the time that I might change it back eventually. By the second morning, I was less inclined to. My phone had acquired more calls overnight, 22 now, still none from family. I was discharged on the afternoon of day 3 with a follow-up cardiology appointment, a folder of instructions about exertion levels and follow-up labs, and a prescription for a medication I would need to pick up on the way home. Sandra arranged for someone from the office to collect my car from the Duke Street parking garage. The award certificate was still in the back seat, in its frame, slightly warped from where the rain had gotten into the car through a window I had left cracked. I drove home. I took my shoes off at the door. I sat on the couch in my coat for about 6 minutes. Then my phone rang. Demi, she was crying before I said anything. She did not know I had been in the hospital, she said. Nobody had told her. She only just heard from a cousin, she said, and she felt terrible, she said, and she hoped I knew she would have come if she had known, she said. I said, "I heard you." She paused. "What?" I said I needed to rest and that I would be in touch. I did not tell her what I heard. I did not mention the post. I hung up and went to bed and lay in the dark for a while, very still, the way I lie in the dark when I am doing arithmetic. I had checked the timestamp on the post during my second morning in the hospital. She posted at 11:04 p.m. I was admitted at 9:41, that is 83 minutes. In 83 minutes, one of two things happens. Either you do not know someone you love is in a hospital, or you do know and you post anyway. There is no third option. She liked her own post at 11:22. I checked, the detail felt important to have. She did not know, she said. She knew. I filed it. Day 4. I made coffee, I sat at my desk, which faces the window, and I opened my laptop. I have a habit with my professional email, as I mentioned. Sunday nights, I clear it. Which is how I had seen the email from the North Carolina Licensing Board 2 weeks before the award ceremony. It arrived on a Sunday. I was at my desk. The subject line said, Professional of Record Verification Request, Application NC 2025-0344. I opened it. The application was for a contractor license. The company name was Demi Okafor Renovations, LLC. The professional of record on the application was me, my PE license number, my professional address, my stamp pending verification. I read it twice. Then I closed the email and sat very still for about 3 minutes. I am good at sitting still when something requires it. I did not call Demi. I did not call my mother. I did not call the licensing board. I looked at the verification deadline, which was 30 days from the application date, and I calculated the window, and I went back to my Sunday routine. I want to be clear about why I waited. It was not cruelty. It was not strategy. Exactly. It was the same thing that made me co-sign the car loan without asking for collateral, and pay the medical bill without asking for a check, and sit at that October dinner without telling her that she had just described me as a tool in her shed. I was waiting to understand the full shape of the thing before I acted on it. I had learned in 14 years of structural engineering that you do not remove a load-bearing element until you know what it is bearing. You do not act until you have the complete picture. The email was one data point. I needed to know what she was actually building. Now, on day 4 after discharge, I opened the licensing board portal. Application number NC 2025-0344. Filed 14 days before the award ceremony. Status, pending professional of record verification. Verification deadline, 9 days from today. I looked at my name on the application for a while. Her name, my license. I thought about the dinner. Nate can help with the technical side. Filed. I thought about the car loan. Filed. I thought about 83 minutes. Filed. I thought about the third morning food tray, none listed, which I had also filed, because I file everything. Then I thought about what professional of record actually means, which is something most people do not know, and Demi certainly did not. It means personal liability. It means every design decision made under that license is mine to answer for. It means if a structural element fails in a house her company renovates, the licensing board comes to my door, my license, my record, my career. She had put my name on that without asking. She had been planning not to ask. She had been planning to call me when the window got short and frame it as paperwork. Something simple, something I would do because I always did. You would have said yes eventually. You always do. I closed the portal. I called Kwame. Kwame has been my friend since the engineering program at NC State, which means he has known me for 15 years and has never once tried to talk me into or out of a decision I had already made. He showed up at my house on day 5 with 2 cups of coffee from the place on 9th Street that gets it right and a laptop bag over his shoulder. Because Kwame does not visit without working. I showed him the email. I showed him the application. I showed him the timestamp on Demi's post against my hospital admission record, which I had printed because I print things when they matter. He read each one. He did not say anything for a while. Then he opened his own laptop and pulled up the North Carolina Licensing Board's Code of Professional Conduct. He read one sentence aloud, the way you read something when you want to make sure it lands. The professional of record assumes personal and professional liability for all work submitted, reviewed, or approved under their PE license. He closed his laptop. You don't owe her your license, he said. That was the whole conversation. I had already read the Code of Conduct. He knew I had. That was why that was the whole conversation. My phone buzzed while he was putting his jacket back on. An Evite notification. Demi Okafor Renovations, LLC launch celebration. Spring date, a venue in downtown Raleigh. 16 people invited. I showed Kwame the notification. He looked at it. He picked up his coffee. He said, she booked a venue. I said, yes. He nodded the way he nods when he is deciding not to say the other thing he is thinking. Then he left. I poured the second coffee into mine and went back to my desk. I want to pause here because I think some of you already know exactly where I was sitting at that desk, and I want to say it plainly before we go further. I am not a person who enjoys this. I am not wired for confrontation or revenge or any of the words people use for what I was doing. I am wired for accuracy. I am wired to look at a structure and tell you whether it will hold and whether the math is honest. I am wired to look at a relationship and do the same thing, and for a long time I told myself the math on my family was close enough. It was not close enough. The cosign was not close enough. The medical bill was not close enough. And 83 minutes was not close enough. Some of you have a person in your life who treats you like infrastructure, who knows you will hold, who has never once considered what happens when the math stops working in their favor. If that is why you are listening to this, stay. Because what I did next was not loud, and it was not dramatic. It was one email and two voicemails in a very quiet room. And it was enough. Subscribe if you want to be there when it happens. The room is 9 days away, day 6. I pulled my carrier's call log and printed it. 41 pages because I have been with the same carrier for 9 years and the records go back. I found the window I needed. From 9:41 p.m. on a Thursday night to 11:47 a.m. on the following Sunday. 68 hours. 0 calls from my mother's number, 0 from Demi's. Then from Sunday at 11:47 a.m. forward, 1 call to 8:22:49 by Wednesday evening. I want to be precise about what those 49 calls actually are, because precision matters here. They are not evidence that my family cares about me. They are evidence of a deadline. The licensing board verification window closed in 9 days from the point when the calls started. The math is that simple and that cold. 68 hours of silence for my health, 48 hours of urgency for her license. I put the printed log in the Manila folder I had been building since day 4. The folder had log, the application printout, the licensing board email, the screenshot of Demi's post with timestamps, and my hospital admission record from Duke University Health System, also printed, which showed the admission time of 9:41 p.m. in the upper right corner of the first page. I also put in one more thing. A printout of the venue booking confirmation that Demi had inadvertently forwarded to a group email thread that included my professional address, the one she had used when she filed the application. She had been coordinating with a caterer and had copied a list of contacts into the thread. My address was in the list because she had it saved, because she had been planning to contact me about the application in her own time, on her own terms, when the window got short enough that refusal became inconvenient. The confirmation showed a deposit of $6,400, non-refundable, contingent on the contractor's SIN approval. The spring date. She had paid that deposit a week before the award ceremony. I will say it again because I want it to be clear. She had already paid a non-refundable $6,400 deposit for a launch party venue while the verification request was sitting in my Sunday inbox. While she was on a Thursday night in March, 83 minutes after my hospital admission, posting about the peaceful evening. The deposit was conditional on the license. The license was conditional on my verification. My verification was conditional on nothing she had thought to ask about. I put the confirmation in the folder. I put the folder in the top drawer of my filing cabinet, the one with the lock. I cleared my inbox. I went to bed. Day 7, my mother called 3 times. I let it go to voicemail each time, the same way I let all of it go to voicemail, because I have a rule about voicemails. And the rule is that I do not play them until I have decided how I feel about the person calling. I had decided how I felt. I was simply waiting for the right room. Demi sent the application by email on day 7 late afternoon. The subject line was, "Hey, quick thing." The body said she knew I was still recovering and she was sorry about that and she just wanted to flag that. There was some paperwork connected to her business license that needed a licensed PE signature. Nothing complicated. She had already done all the hard parts. It was just a formality, and she knew I would want to look it over first. Haha. I read that email twice. The haha was doing a great deal of work. The she had already done all the hard parts was doing even more. The application had been filed under my name without my knowledge or consent. She was describing that as her having done the hard parts. In her accounting of events, placing my name and license number on a legal document without asking was a labor she had performed on my behalf. A burden she had absorbed so I would not have to. I thought about that framing for a while. I thought about the car loan, which she had also framed as me helping her be responsible. I thought about the medical bill, which had been framed as family taking care of family. I thought about the October dinner and what it meant to have your name mentioned in a sentence about someone else's future plan as though you were a predictable weather condition. He'll get it done. In every version of the story Demi told about me, I was the same character. Difficult in the short run, reliable in the end, a man who made things complicated but could always be counted on to cooperate by the time it mattered. She was not wrong about the history. She was wrong about the future, specifically because she had used the history as a reason to stop checking. I filed the email, saved, timestamped, backed up to 2 locations, because I am an engineer and I do not keep single copies of documents that matter. I want to pause here because I think some of you already know exactly where I was sitting at that desk. And I want to say it plainly before we go further. I am not a person who enjoys this. I am not wired for confrontation or revenge or any of the words people use for what I was doing. I am wired for accuracy. I am wired to look at a structure and tell you whether it will hold and whether the math is honest. I am wired to look at a relationship and do the same thing, And for a long time I told myself the math on my family was close enough. It was not close enough. The cosine was not close enough. The birthday dinner where my mother said there she is when Demi arrived an hour late was not close enough. And 83 minutes was not close enough. Some of you have a person in your life who treats you like infrastructure, who knows you will hold, who has never once considered what happens when you decide not to. If that is why you are here, stay. Because what I did next was not loud and it was not dramatic. It was one portal, one field, 9 words in a response box, and it was enough. Subscribe if you want to be there when it happens. The room is 9 days away and the math is already done. The licensing board sent me the final verification reminder on day 8. The window closed in 3 days. I opened the portal. I clicked on application SNC 2025-0344. I found the verification field. I read the confirmation language which stated that by verifying, I accepted the designation of professional of record and all attendant responsibilities and liabilities for all work submitted under my PE license. I had read that language before. The night the email first arrived, on a Sunday sitting at my desk with the inbox open and the house quiet, I had read it and thought about what it meant, which is what I always do when a document asks me to agree to something. I calculate what I am agreeing to. I see if the math is honest. The math was not honest. I clicked the back button. I typed in the response field. I am declining to verify this application. I was listed as professional of record without my knowledge or consent. I submitted it. I closed the portal. I closed the laptop. I stood up from my desk and stretched the way I stretch after a long calculation, and then I went to the kitchen and made dinner, something I had been putting off all afternoon. The licensing board denial arrived by automated email at 4:47 a.m. on day 8. Status: application denied. Reason: professional of record declined verification. I saw it when I cleared my Sunday inbox. I read it once. I put the phone face down and made coffee. The $6,400 venue deposit was non-refundable. The contractor she had paid $2,000 to had already cashed the check. The spring launch date was 12 weeks away, and the business it was celebrating did not exist. Somewhere in Raleigh, a notification had arrived in Demi's inbox. I did not imagine her morning. I thought about mine, which was quiet, the coffee good, the inbox clear, the week ahead with the Reservoir Bridge calculations waiting on my desk in a neat stack. I thought about the word "ha-ha" in an email about my professional license, and then I stopped thinking about it, because I had work to do, and the work does not care about anything except whether the load calculations are right. My mother called on day 9 and asked me to come to the house. She said it would just be the 3 of us. She said it in the voice she uses when she is not asking. I have known that voice for 37 years, and I have resisted it for about the last 10. I said I would come. I pulled the manila folder from the filing cabinet. I put it in my bag. I drove to Raleigh, 40 minutes, the route I have driven so many times that my hands know the exits. The house smelled like jollof and something I could not name underneath it. Something tight and rehearsed, the way a room smells when people have been sitting in it preparing. My mother was at the kitchen table. Demi was at the far end of the table with a folder of her own, which I noticed and did not comment on. The folder had tabs. She had tabbed it. I found that almost interesting. My mother started. She always starts. She said she was glad I came, that she had been worried about my health, that she hoped I was taking the recovery seriously. She touched my arm. I told her I was fine. She said, we wanted to talk about Demi's situation. Demi opened her folder. She had the application, a printed copy. She had what looked like a contract with a contractor. She had the venue confirmation. She slid them across the table toward me and began to explain the business plan, which I already understood in its entirety, with the kind of patient clarity that people use when they assume you are the problem, and the problem is that you do not understand. I let her finish. Then I reached into my bag and I took out my phone. I play voicemails through the speaker. It is a setting I have had on for years. I opened the voicemail archive and I played the 3rd message. It was Demi's voice. She had called on day 2 of my hospitalization after about 40 minutes of radio silence on my end. She sounded efficient. She said, Nate, it's me. I really need you to call me back. I know you're probably resting, but this is kind of time sensitive. I hope you're not being difficult again. The kitchen was very quiet. Difficult again. I did not explain what difficult meant in that sentence. I did not need to. It means what it always means in that family, which is not complying, not folding, not doing the thing that was expected of him because it had always been expected of him. I put the phone face up on the table. I opened my bag and took out the folder. I placed the call log on the table first, the printed pages, 41 of them. Turned to the page with the highlighted window. 68 hours, I said. 0 calls. My mother looked at the pages. Then 49 calls in 48 hours, I said. I have the carrier records. I placed the hospital admission document on top. 9:41 p.m. admission, date and time in the corner. Then I set my phone in the center of the table and opened the screenshot I had taken in the hospital on the second morning. Demi's post. Timestamp 11:04 p.m. The caption, finally a night without his drama. The like count, the comments from her friends. Demi reached across the table and put her hand on my phone. She was going to pick it up. I placed my hand on top of hers, flat and still, and she stopped. She pulled her hand back. I read the post aloud once, no inflection. The way I read load specifications, which is to say with the understanding that every word is a commitment someone has already made. My mother made a sound I had not heard from her in a long time, something that was not quite speech. Then I took the application out of my folder, the one Demi had filed. I placed it on the table. This application was filed 14 days before the award ceremony, I said. My name is listed as professional of record. My license number is on line 7. I pointed to line 7. I received the licensing board's verification request on a Sunday night, 2 weeks before the ceremony. I clear my professional email every Sunday. I read it the same night it arrived. Demi looked at the application. Then she looked at me. You knew, she said. Yes. The room was very quiet for a moment. My mother had both hands flat on the table. Then why didn't you say anything? Demi said. I was deciding. She looked at me the way she looks at me when she is calculating how to reframe a thing. I have seen that look many times. It is the look of someone who has always found the reframe in time. She said, Nate, I just needed the stamp. It wasn't going to affect you. You would have said yes eventually. She paused. She said it with a kind of tired certainty, the certainty of someone who has always been right about this particular thing. You always do. I looked at her. I did not say anything. She waited. I picked up my bag. I put the folder inside it. I pushed my chair back from the table. My mother said my name. I put on my coat. Demi said, Can you please just talk to me? I zipped my bag. I looked at both of them for a moment, not long. The way you look at a calculation you have already finished. Then I walked to the front door, and I opened it, and I went outside, and I closed it. Behind me, their voices did not follow me. That part I will remember. I sat in my car in the driveway for about 3 minutes without starting the engine. Not processing. I had already processed. I was simply allowing myself to sit in the finished thing for a moment before I drove back into my regular life. Then I started the car and backed out of the driveway and drove the 40 minutes home. The licensing board denial had already gone to Demi by the time I left my mother's house. The automated email, the formal letter to follow. Application NC 2025-0344 denied. Professional of record declined verification. The $6,400 she had paid to the venue was gone. The contractor she had hired and paid $2,000 to in advance kept the deposit. The spring launch date came and went for a business that did not exist. My mother called the following afternoon. I watched it ring. She called twice more that week. I answered the third call. Because she is my mother, and because I am not building a wall, I am placing a door, and doors open sometimes. She asked why I had done it. I told her I had declined to be listed as professional of record on an application I had not agreed to. She said that was not what she meant. I said I understood. She was quiet for a while. Then she asked if I understood how hard things were for Demi right now. I said I did understand how hard things were. I said that understanding something and bearing the cost of it are two different decisions, and I had made both for a long time, and I had made a different one this time. She said she did not raise us to be like this. I said I did not think she had intended to raise us the way it turned out. I meant that honestly. Said I loved her and that I needed to go. I hung up and sat in the quiet of my house for a while. 6 months later, Demi's renovation business has not launched. She has not posted publicly since March. The contractor she hired is working other jobs. The venue she booked has long since resold the date to someone else's spring celebration. My mother and I talk occasionally. The conversations are careful and shorter than they used to be, which is an improvement over long and false. She does not mention Demi's business. I do not bring it up. Once, in May, she called on a Sunday afternoon and we talked for 20 minutes about a cousin's graduation and the weather in Raleigh and a neighborhood dog she has developed an opinion about. She did not say anything about the kitchen table or the voicemails. I did not ask. When she said goodbye, she said she was glad I was feeling better. I said I was glad too. Both things were true. Demi sent me a text in April. One sentence, I didn't think you'd actually do it. I read it 3 times. I thought about what to say. I thought about the car loan and the medical bill and the birthday dinner and 83 minutes and ha-ha and you always do. I thought about a professional license that took me 8 years of school and exams and supervised practice to earn, and that she had put on a government form without a phone call. I typed, I know, and I sent it. And I have not heard from her since. Sandra is still listed as my emergency contact. I have not changed it. I thought about it once, sometime in May, standing at my desk after a long day, and then I thought about the food tray card, 3 mornings in a row, none listed, and I thought about how it had felt accurate, and I left it where it was. My next project is a vehicular bridge over a reservoir outside Charlotte. The preliminary design phase is underway. The site conditions are more complicated than the Eno River, which is the kind of problem I find satisfying. The load calculations are clean. I know they are clean because I check them and I check them again, and I do not submit anything until the math is honest. The Engineering Society sent a note about next year's awards cycle. I told them I would submit the reservoir bridge when the work was done. I still clear my professional email every Sunday night. I am faster at it now, because there is one less category of thing that requires me to sit still for 3 minutes. The inbox empties the same way it always has, one email at a time in order until the queue is clear. The Manila folder is in the filing cabinet, top drawer locked. I do not open it. I do not need to. I keep things that matter in places where I can find them if I ever need them, and I keep them until I am certain I do not. I am not certain yet. 68 hours is not the kind of number you need to look at again to remember. But I will know when I no longer need the paper, and I will shred it cleanly, and that will be the end of it. The award certificate is on the wall now, in the hallway, in a frame I bought to replace the original. The rain had warped the first frame, the one that sat in my car overnight while I was in a hospital bed reading a food tray card. I bought a better frame. The certificate looks fine. It looks like what it is. 4 years of work that held weight, mine and nobody else's. Here is what I want to leave you with, because this is a specific thing and it deserves a specific ending. If someone has put your name on something you did not sign, your name is not theirs to use. Not a contract, not an application, not a government form, not a licensing document that carries your professional liability into every room a stranger's house might fall in. The stamp is yours. The record is yours. The career you built in 8 years of school and exams and long Sundays at a desk is yours. And no amount of "you always do" changes the fact that always is not the same as forever. Some people will call that dramatic. Let them. I am not dramatic. I am precise. The difference is that precision actually holds weight. Drama is just noise around a structure that was never built to last. That is my story. 1 award I drove home alone. 1 hospital admission at 9:41 p.m. 1 post at 11:04. 49 calls I did not answer. And 9 words in a licensing board response field that did more than any of them expected from a man who was supposed to always cooperate in the end. If this reminded you that your name on something is the one decision only you get to make, and that cooperating once is not the same as cooperating forever, take that with you today. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. Drop a comment, hit subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.